Walk into any guitar shop and pick up two Les Paul style guitars from the same brand, same year, same pickups, same hardware. One has a mahogany body, the other has a swamp ash body. A salesperson will tell you the mahogany one sounds warmer and thicker, while the ash one sounds brighter and more scooped in the mid-range. They will say it with absolute confidence as though this is settled physics. But ask a scientist who studies acoustics whether the wood species in a solid body electric guitar meaningfully changes the amplified tone, and you will get a very different answer. And the gap between what the guitar industry claims and what the evidence supports is wide enough to drive a tour bus through. To understand how we got here, you need to understand how wood selection actually happened in the early days of the electric guitar. Leo Fender did not sit in his Fullerton, California workshop in 1950 auditioning exotic tone woods for the Telecaster. He chose ash because it was cheap, available from local lumber suppliers in Southern California, and easy to machine with the woodworking tools he had. When ash became more expensive and harder to source in consistent quality, Fender switched large portions of production to alder, which was lighter, took paint finishes better, and cost less. The decision was driven by supply chain logistics, not by some revelatory listening session where Leo determined that alder had a more balanced mid-range character. Gibson used mahogany for the Les Paul because mahogany had been the standard body wood for American stringed instruments since the 1800s. It was traditional, it was available, it carved well. The choice was inherited from decades of mandolin and arch-top guitar building, not from a controlled tonal comparison against alternative species. The maple top on the Les Paul Standard was added primarily for aesthetics and structural stiffness, not because Ted McCarty ran frequency response tests and determined that maple brightened the attack. The mythology of Tonewood was applied retroactively. After decades of players associating certain guitars with certain sounds, the industry worked backward from the conclusion. Strats sound bright and snappy, and they are made from alder. Therefore, alder must sound bright and snappy. Les Paul sound thick and warm, and they are made from mahogany. Therefore, mahogany must sound thick and warm. The logic is circular, and it ignores the dozens of other variables that differ between a Stratocaster and a Les Paul, including pickup type, scale length, bridge design, neck joint construction, string gauge, and amplifier choice. Now, before the Tonewood believers grab their pitchforks, there is a version of this argument that is completely legitimate. On an acoustic guitar, wood choice matters enormously. The top of an acoustic guitar is the primary sound-producing surface. It vibrates in response to the strings, pushes air inside the body cavity, and projects sound directly to the listener's ears. The density, stiffness, and grain structure of that top wood have a measurable and audible effect on volume, sustain, overtone balance, and projection. A Sitka spruce top sounds different from a cedar top on an acoustic guitar, and that difference is real, repeatable, and significant. Nobody disputes this. The problem is that an electric guitar does not work the same way. An acoustic guitar's body is the amplifier. An electric guitar's body is a platform that holds strings, pickups, and hardware. The sound you hear from an electric guitar comes from a pickup reading the vibration of the strings through a magnetic field. That electrical signal then travels through a cable, potentially through a pedal board full of effects, into a preamplifier stage, through a power amplifier, and out of a speaker cone mounted inside a cabinet. Each one of those links in the chain adds its own coloration to the signal, and the coloration added by each of those stages is dramatically larger than any contribution the body would make. Think about it practically. A guitarist playing a mahogany body Les Paul through a tube screamer overdrive pedal into a cranked Marshall amplifier with the gain at 7 is running their signal through a series of stages that compress, clip, filter, and reshape the waveform so aggressively that the subtle resonant differences between mahogany and alder become acoustically irrelevant. The pickup magnets, the coil windings, the pedal circuit, the amplifier tubes, and the speaker cone each impose tonal characteristics that are orders of magnitude larger than bodywood resonance. This is not speculation. Luthiers and researchers have tested it. Several builders have constructed identical guitars, same neck, same pickups, same bridge, same nut, same strings, same scale length, but with different body woods, and recorded them through the same amplifier and microphone setup. In blind listening comparisons, experienced guitarists and audio engineers consistently struggle to identify which guitar used which wood species. The differences are either inaudible or so small that they fall within the range of normal variation between two pieces of the same wood species. YouTube has accelerated this reckoning. Channels dedicated to gear comparison have run Tonewood blind tests that have been viewed millions of times. Viewers watch a guitarist play identical riffs through identical rigs on guitars that differ only in body material, and the comments fill with people admitting they could not tell the difference. One well-known series compared mahogany, swamp ash, alder, and basswood on otherwise identical guitar builds, and the results were inconclusive at best. Experienced players guessed correctly at roughly the rate you would expect from random chance. The variables that demonstrably and measurably change the tone of an electric guitar more than body would are numerous and well documented. Pickup type is the most significant single variable. A guitar loaded with a Seymour Duncan JB humbucker in the bridge position will sound fundamentally different from the same guitar loaded with an EMG 81 active pickup, regardless of whether the body is carved from mahogany, alder, swamp ash, or a kitchen cutting board. The magnet material inside the pickup, the number of coil windings, the height of the pickup relative to the strings, and whether the pickup is wired in series or parallel all contribute more tonal variation than wood species. If you are finding this eye-opening, hit subscribe. We dig into the science and business behind guitar gear every week. Now let us talk about why this myth is so profitable. String gauge matters more than wood. A set of 11 gauge strings produces a thicker, louder signal with more mid-range than a set of 9 gauge strings on the same guitar. Pick material and thickness change the attack profile. Scale length affects string tension and harmonic content. Bridge type. Whether a fixed hardtail, a vintage tremolo, or a Floyd Rose, changes the sustain characteristics and the way vibration transfers through the instrument. The nut material, whether bone, graphite, or plastic, affects open string resonance. Every one of these variables produces a larger measurable tonal change than swapping the body wood from one species to another. And then there is the amplifier, which reshapes the signal more dramatically than anything the guitar itself does. The difference between a Fender Deluxe Reverb and a Mesa Boogie Dual Rectifier is a canyon. The difference between a mahogany body and an alder body through the same amplifier is a crack in the sidewalk. So why does the guitar industry cling to the Tonewood narrative so tightly? Follow the money. Boutique guitar builders charge premium prices, and they need stories to justify those prices. Telling a customer that their $4,000 guitar uses hand-selected, old-growth mahogany with specific grain density patterns creates a narrative of exclusivity and craft. Telling them that the mahogany body contributes roughly 2% of the tonal character, while the $15 set of strings contributes more, does not sell $4,000 guitars. The Tonewood story works the same way premium wine marketing works. Blind taste tests have repeatedly shown that wine experts cannot reliably distinguish expensive wines from cheap ones when they cannot see the label. The story on the bottle, the terroir, the vintage, the winemaker's philosophy, shapes the perception of flavor. Tonewood functions identically. The story about the wood shapes the perception of tone. The CITE's regulations on rosewood, introduced in 2017, created an accidental case study. When international trade restrictions made rosewood fretboards more expensive and harder to source, guitar prices climbed. Manufacturers justified the increases by emphasizing the tonal importance of rosewood fretboards. When CITES relaxed the restrictions in 2019, the narrative quietly faded, but the prices did not come back down. The scarcity story had done its work. Now, honesty requires acknowledging what Tonewood believers get right. Different wood species have different densities, different weights, and different physical properties that a player can feel. A lightweight swamp ash Telecaster feels different strapped to your body than a heavier mahogany Telecaster. That physical experience affects comfort, fatigue, and how long you want to play. and how long you want to play directly affects how well you play. There is also a legitimate argument for unplugged resonance. If you sit on a couch playing an electric guitar with no amplifier, you can hear and feel differences in how different body woods vibrate. The mahogany guitar might sustain slightly longer. The ash guitar might ring slightly brighter. Those differences are real and measurable in that context. They are just almost completely masked once the signal enters an amplifier. The psychological dimension is worth taking seriously as well. If a guitarist believes their old-growth mahogany Les Paul sounds warmer and more musical than a basswood alternative, that belief produces real confidence. Confidence makes you play with more commitment, more dynamics, and more expression. The placebo effect is a real effect. It just does not prove that mahogany has a warmer frequency response than basswood through a distorted amplifier in a live mix. The honest answer to the Tonewood question is the answer that neither camp wants to hear. Tonewood is not a scam. The physical properties of different wood species are measurable and real. But the tonal significance of those properties in a solid body electric guitar, once the signal passes through pickups, a cable, effects, an amplifier, and a speaker cabinet, is so small relative to every other variable in the chain that it functionally sits at the bottom of the list of things that shape your sound. If you want to make the biggest tonal upgrade to your electric guitar for the least money, change your pickups. If you want the second biggest upgrade, change your strings. If you want the third biggest upgrade, change your amplifier settings. If you want the smallest, most marginal, most debatable upgrade, change your body wood. That does not mean you should not care about the wood in your guitar. Quality materials, thoughtful construction, and beautiful aesthetics make an instrument worth owning and worth playing. A gorgeously figured maple top on a mahogany body is a pleasure to look at and a pleasure to hold. That has value. Just be honest with yourself about what you are paying for. You are paying for craftsmanship, aesthetics, and the experience of playing a well-built instrument. You are not paying for a frequency response curve that a pickup, a cable, and an amplifier will overwrite before the sound reaches anyone's ears. The guitar industry sells stories. Some of those stories are true. The Tonewood story is about 5% true and 95% marketing. And once you understand that ratio, you can make much better decisions about where your money actually goes.